First thing, I was thinking of the word climate mobility. Okay. And you are an expert in this field.
Yes.
Is that a new term, or has it existed since the beginning of time?
So first, thank you very much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be on your podcast and to speak to you today.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely. I would say human mobility is not a new thing. It's centuries. Humans naturally seek new resources, seek a better environment, and by virtue of that, they move around in many ways. Climate mobility is, in my view, just a byproduct of that. You seek new resources, you are able to move your family, your community, your society to seek those resources and to be more resilient.
So it's historically, this has been
That's
happening.
my view, and that's normally how I view it in terms of mobility for people in that way. Now, climate, as we know, also has been decades changing because of human activity largely, and those changes have led to more and more issues in terms of individual communal resiliency, challenges, and that caused more mobility and more individuals to seek better life, to seek better resources, better services, and so on and so forth. So in our context in Iraq, for example, we see these factors interacting with vulnerabilities that exist in the community. And those vulnerabilities then lead individuals to seek a better environment or a better life. And in doing so, they would move into city centers and more to populations centers.
Do they know, these people, that they are climate migrants, for example? Do they know the term, or they don't know the causes necessarily? They see the outcome of climate change, but do they know that that's how they are categorized?
I think terminology-wise, and it's so different in many contexts. In many of on Earth. In my view, I think people do it out of necessity, and they respond to their realities, rather than having a title in that way or a name and so on.
A label.
A label. That's the better way to describe it. And so they do not, I believe, realize it. But now the terminology has caught on.
Exactly.
It's a label to name something for, and in the response of it from an international perspective, from a government perspective as well, connecting the dots, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true, because they may not necessarily know that their life has changed. They have to move from the countryside to the urban area because of climate change. It's the work, I guess, of scientists and experts to lay out the causes, but the victims themselves just move on to a new.
Absolutely, and just to emphasize the point here, it's when we look at the discipline, climate security or engagement with climate governance in that way, you often talk about it in a way that conditions are exacerbated by climate. And so, issues of basic services that people deal with and are part of their realities, it's where climate comes in and exacerbates that. Resource competition, where, it's usually access to water, to land, and so on and so forth.
These days it's water, right? Now and the future, I guess.
Absolutely. And the byproducts of that, and this is something that is really interesting since you asked about mobility in that way, the byproducts are, secondary and tertiary in that way. So you have issues of populations where they move, they change their livelihood to fit the context that they're moving to. So when you're talking about tangible and intangible heritage in that way, in Arabic it's the haraf, the artisanal expertise that are with people.
These are lost, or they bring.
These are lost in that way. For example, the people in the marshes in Iraq, they work with the reeds.
Yeah,
creating many
These are
products.
reeds. Actually, I brought them from a village where I live.
Okay,
and they
excellent.
dried here. I love reeds.
Excellent. No, this is really lovely.
Speaking of reeds, in the marshes, it's an amazing ecosystem.
Absolutely.
The marshes of Iraq.
And this is the beauty of it. The people there are in tune with their environment.
Yeah.
They use the products in a sustainable way. They have their animals. They use the byproducts from there to sustain their life and so on and so forth. And then their artisanal livelihood is creating those products.
Yeah.
But what we've noticed and through research is that when people move, then this is lost.
Yes. Because it's useless in the city. Those skills.
And the resources are not there. The basics of it is the reeds are not in the city in that way. So when you're talking about loss, it's, in many layers.
Yeah.
So it's economic loss by moving and by losing your livelihood and by uprooting your family. And it's the tangible, intangible heritage loss.
Yes.
So, for example, the marshlands are a heritage site, a World Heritage Site recognized, and the loss is a tangible loss. But then the intangible loss is the stories, the skills, the way people live their life that is lost in that way.
They are doing they need a lot of help, I must say, these marshes. But I remember in June of 2003, I went to the marshes of southern Iraq after the regime change in Iraq. Yes. I was there. They had been dried by former regimes, the marshes. So I was there the day they broke some of the dams and water came back to the marshes. Wow. And I saw with my own eyes water flowing back into the marshes for the first time after 2 decades or so in 2003. And it was so hopeful back then. The marshes were coming back to life. Now, again, they face a lot of threats.
Absolutely. And when you talk about it in this terminology, water is life.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's part of the livelihood and really intertwined throughout the life of so many communities and that way. And this is largely the challenge that Iraq faces due to climate change, due to many other factors, infrastructure, management of the water, agriculture practices, and so on. It really is a challenge.
And these things, once they are gone, it's hard to bring them back. With marshes, with a specific environmental place or a tradition, once it's lost, it's so hard and almost impossible or very costly to restore it.
Absolutely it is. And I think part of the solution, perhaps, and this is something previously in my work I've engaged with, is really re-energizing the connection that the individuals have with their ecosystem, with their life. And you're the expert on ecosystems and conservations in many ways. But when you have that connection, when it comes to human mobility, and if you're taking care of your ecosystem, of your surroundings, your environment, it is one that creates deeper ties in that way. And I always value and always appreciate the connection, for example, the Kurdish people have with the mountains and with their environments and so on. And how it's a very special bond in that way. And it can, in fact, be part of the solution. I mean, if you look at the water resources in Iraq, beyond the traditional rivers, the water resources in the mountains that go unharnessed. And now there's efforts to create ponds to harvest the water and so on and so forth. But really, it's an interesting space for me to see how ecosystems and using nature to support the solutions.
Nature-based solutions.
Absolutely, yes. And it was exciting that the Kurdistan joined IUCN. I saw one of your podcasts, and very happy for that. This is a connection that we made a few years ago in Bonn with the Prime Minister's office.
It's a major step,
Absolutely. And IUCN really pioneers engaging ecosystem services and ecosystem solutions.
Working with communities, with basically finding solutions in nature itself. That's how it works, really.
Absolutely. And this is the exciting part about it. it makes sense from an economic point of view. You're not spending so much resources creating those engineering solutions, those mega engineering solutions. You're deepening the connection of the people to their land, and you're creating that kind of balance between how you use your land, how you use your ecosystems, and so on and so on. But it's a challenging endeavor, especially now that the environment is changing ever more severely in terms of heat and droughts and so on and so forth.
But I mean, speaking of the environment worsening, say that if we have air pollution problem, for example, global warming, we could blame it on major industrial countries. For example, we know the major countries that pollute the air and all that. But on the ground, I think the country and its own people must be blamed for environmental degradation on the ground level.
Yes.
Like it's not the US or China. They pollute the air, but on the ground, it's ourselves doing the damage.
Yeah.
Right? People who live in the country.
Absolutely. And it's a very complex relationship, and many causal links can be drawn. There is a globalized issue from greenhouse emissions and the impact that it has on the environment and changing of the environment. And absolutely it is. There is a localized responsibility as well. The way, for example, I've seen a documentary recently about plastic and the issue of microplastics and how that really is seen everywhere in animals and fish, seen on top of mountains as well. Wow. Because of
even the places where humans haven't reached their
absolutely
plastic.
And it's getting there. And something that was I didn't know is that some of the waste in the oceans, and these are like New York-sized islands of waste in oceans.
Wow.
Plastic and other materials, they come through the rivers. And this is a very clear indications of one, how to manage it and how to resolve it, but also the source of it. It's people discarding their waste because there are no other ways to discard it in the river.
So these recycling projects in the world are not really effective compared to the amount of waste produced.
That's an interesting thought. It's I believe, in part, how we deal as humans with consuming, because we overconsume.
That's the big problem.
Absolutely.
And we consume a lot.
Yeah, we consume a lot and we generate lots of waste, and this is kind of part of how economies work now, how consumerism works, and how we interact with goods and services and all that. And that's the problem, in my view, is that how we humans deal with the products that are there. And then the generation of the waste that is done because of lower level services, capacities, and so on and so forth, recycling or management of the waste is not possible. So in many countries, it's to discard it in the rivers, and then that goes into the oceans, and that creates ripple effects. In many ways, the products that are now chemically modified, they show up in our foods. They show up and they impact our health.
Exactly.
And they were talking about an experiment in that documentary between testing lab mice with the same calorie intake for a period of time, but with insertion of microplastics into the diet of one of the lab mice. And what they found out is that one lab mice with the same calorie intake, so essentially the same food intake, has obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, and so on and so forth.
All the problems that we humans have.
Absolutely, from a young age. So imagine now...
This is the mouse that took the microplastics
in their diets. And so imagine now the simplest that we do when we're thirsty.
Yeah.
We crack open a bottle of water. And then that friction releases the microplastics into the water. And they tell you don't ever drink water from a hot car, for example, because that interacts in that way.
Or water that has been sitting in the sun for a while. They say don't drink it.
Absolutely. But then that goes back to how are we storing those water bottles?
I guess we all have to leave society and live on a very far away mountain.
Live in a farm, and you pioneered that way.
But even with the way you talk about it, with microplastics and things, even if you live on a farm, they will get to you, these microplastics.
in a sense, and not to be overly kind of raising alarms, but in some way we should pay attention to it, because it's a large part of our health, and knowing what goes into our body is a very, very important thing that we need to do.
I think with that point of consumerism, I think there lies one of the major solutions for the environment, the resources, climate change, because we consume not only, you buy anything, it comes in 1,000 wraps, plastic wrapping, paper wrap, and you buy a tiny gadget, it comes with a box.
Yes.
That is also garbage. And
Absolutely.
then a lot of food, in Kurdistan and Iraq especially, the food waste is tragic, I must say.
Absolutely. No, and it's and that's what I was talking about, the complex relationship. Is the supply side of things or the demand side of things? Is it the big corporations pushing more products for more profit? Or is it us humans, buying more and so on? And it's a very complex relationship that will be studied for years and years to understand it.
Yeah.
But it absolutely is. How we deal and how we make choices and how we consume ought to be the critical question that we ask. And making those small changes in our personal lives. And this is the beauty of collective action.
Yeah.
And the cynical view is that, what can I do? If I change my lifestyle, is that going to impact a world where there are 7.5 billion individuals?
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it. The collective action of when you make a change, it is when you get to see the results. So for example, myself, I'm pescatarian. I've left eating meat and chicken for 3.5 years now. I eat fish once a week or so. And that was because of the example that you've given, is the food waste.
Food waste,
So
you made that change because of food waste, or you did not want to eat meat anymore?
There are many factors, really. Global warming was one of them. And it also goes back to consumerism of food productions.
Yeah.
We produce food in a way that is unbalanced. There are areas of the world that are starving and areas of the world that are wasting the food. But it's done in a way that is taxing our environment, taxing the soil, taxing the ecosystem in that many way. So that was part of my conviction. I've left it as well from a personal choice, eating meat and chicken. So there are many factors that led me to my decision.
So the outcome is good, whatever the reason.
The outcome is healthier, I believe.
For you
but this is part of it, is that the individual action, depending on the percentage of it, collectively can have a result, can have an impact on our environment and on our world. So it's not just me that are choosing to do something. Others can do the same in how they consume anything.
It helps, I mean, if people understand the cost of producing the meat that they eat or the fruit that they consume, whatever, that's when people can change their lifestyle or their behavioral change, is to know this kilo of meat that comes to your table has cost a lot of water and animal feed, methane emissions, 1,000 other things. So we have to calculate those things in order to convince someone to say, consume less.
Absolutely. And you connected it with the waste and how we consume our food.
Yeah.
And this was part of my reasoning, in that feeling really uncomfortable with the amount of food wasted after a meal.
Yes.
And reflecting on our culture and on how we interact with food and so on is something that we as a society can change in that way. How do we consume food? What are the expectations of big gatherings? Because we're generous in many ways.
Yeah, generous, and it shows in the presentation of food.
Absolutely. So it's not a dilemma or a conflict between culture and but it's really entrenched within our culture in many ways.
Yes.
How we interact and how we respect food.
Yeah.
And this is maybe the one way to go back to it, as this is how we do it, and then demonstrating by examples. That one sheep or one cow or 1 kilo of, as you put it, of meat.
Yeah.
Use that amount of resources.
Yeah.
And it really is, if you multiply it by the billions of people that are on Earth, it's an unsustainable way of how we produce our food.
Exactly. And people don't have to eat meat every day. I just forget even about climate and environment. I am being judgmental here. Why do you have to eat? Some people say they must have meat at least twice a day, lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And it's not good for you in the first place.
No, I absolutely agree. And it's like I told you, it's been 3.5 years. I don't miss it in many ways. It's how you feel afterward and how your body interacts. Yeah. And they've done many studies to prove that. Your calorie intake and how the food that goes into your body.
So what do you replace the meat and chicken with? More vegetables and plant-based
More vegetables, plant-based diet, yes. For protein sources, the beans.
Yeah, they are number one. Yeah.
And this is the kind of the unknown hidden story of Iraqi cuisine. Is that a lot of people think of it as heavy in meat, but you have a lot. It
looks heavy in meat, yeah.
Looks heavy in meat, but there are ways to alternate how you produce the food or cook the food in a way so that it's plant-based in that way. So there's lots of beans and potatoes and starchy ways.
And you eat fish once a week, you said, or once a month?
About once a week.
Once a week.
Yeah.
So speaking of fish, I don't like the type of fish that's very common in Iraq and Kurdistan, and that's carp. Yeah.
Yes.
That probably there are more types of fish in the south of Iraq, but here mainly it's that type produced in ponds and things. I wish we had more varieties of fish.
Yeah. And not to belabor a point, I think it's a byproduct of the consumption that happens in the market.
Fish production?
I think the fish production, and I'm not an expert and I don't know the details of it, but the environment and the rivers, there are many artificial ponds that produces those fish.
Many, yeah.
Many, and uses the waters and so on and so forth. But also like the biodiversity has became less and less in terms of the types of fish that exist in the country. And I don't know, this is a question for a scientist to untangle.
Exactly.
Is it a cause of climate change? Is it a cause of human behavior? Or is it a combination of both?
Habitat loss, for example.
Habitat loss and so on. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's an issue.
Yeah.
Because when I see videos of southern Iraq in Basra, they have put out 100 types of fish.
Yeah.
And that's because it's on the Gulf, I guess. And I hope what I see is real and organic.
I'm not sure. I've been to Basra a few times. Really lovely city, and I've had the fish there a few times as well. Really good as well. But I don't know if it is within the Gulf, the Basra Gulf, or outside of it that is then imported in. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
Do you think Iraq was historically people were more enviro-friendly than in modern times? Because if you look at old houses, everything, as we said, was built around nature. Mud houses, air ventilation, natural air ventilation for air to come through the house. And you would see a village congregated all towards each other instead of sprawling out into the environment. Yes, spreading out. Yeah. So I think, if people lived exactly like how we lived 300 years ago, keeping certain things, I'm not saying we should go back to 300 years ago, but in terms of construction, architecture, road building, irrigation, if we practice some of what they did, we solve some issues.
Yeah, I think so. And it's I guess a critical point to ask, how can that be a renaissance of how culture is intertwined with our way of life and how we interact with the sources that we have in our environment? Interestingly, they found, and this I see a clear example, there is a correlation between GDP increase and improvement in the lives of individuals, economies, so the development of economies and so on and so forth, and consumption and the impact they have on the environment. And this is a very clear linear connection.
Wow.
When you have more resources, and if you've been deprived of those resources, you spend more. You want to access those resources and
Overcompensate for your past.
overcompensate, and we've dealt with that very heavily as a country. Many years of conflict, of wars, sanctions, and I believe, to your question, now comes the realization is there were floodgates that are opening and that opened after the end of the war, in terms of how we interact with materialistic gadgets and services and so on and so forth. I remember my grandmother and mother always reusing everything.
Yes.
Out of
that was
necessity,
my
I
point,
think. But like we never had new containers and so on and so forth. Everything was reused, repurposed. You look at what you have and to see how you extend the life of it. Is it clothes, is it a car, whatever it is?
Whatever it is, exactly. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
Instead of every time you get tired of something which is functional, getting a new one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the reality with gadgets, phones and computers and clothes as well. You were talking about how to demonstrate to people the clothes production that happens.
Yeah.
And you can look at it, for example, a leather jacket takes a full tanker of 1,000 liters of water to produce.
To make one jacket.
Yes, because of the leather productions and the dyeing and everything, the dyes and everything. So when you demonstrate that to people, and you're like, okay, the clothes that you worn for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, created now in a cheaper way.
Yeah.
So, you wear them and you buy and you overbuy and so on and so forth. It's connected.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if it is a question of education. I think in part it is awareness of people, governmental engagement or governance engagement or regulations in that way. There are many considerations on how to deal with it. But there certainly has been I feel like a societal psyche shift that happened over decades.
For the better, I mean?
I won't label it, but in terms of consuming more, and not necessarily in Iraq.
Consuming more, that definitely is the case. There's another area that you are an expert in, that's called peace building. So in my head, there is always this chicken and egg issue when it comes to peace building and stability in a society. Is it because we destroy the environment, the climate, resources and everything that leads to conflict? Or is it conflict that causes the destruction of the environment and climate? Which one we could blame first?
You can argue for both. And what helps me think about it is a traditional peace building and development kind of rationale into it. The way society is built and interacts, there are push and pull factors. There are tension points. There are often that cycle that then there's an external shock that creates those tensions and so on and so forth. So you can think of it from that perspective, and that society functions, and if it is the society is vulnerable because of many conditions and reasons and causalities, and then the environment exacerbates that tension, the resource, the way you deal with it and you interact with it and so on and so forth, that could cause to the exacerbation of conflict in that way. The reason I think of it from a traditional perspective is that there are the basics in a society to function. when it comes to basic services, education, health, freedom of expression, and political engagement, and so on and so forth. And when that interacts with the environment, is the dwindling of the resources that can cause or that can lead into increased tension and that way. Yeah.
So they are exactly, as you say, interconnected very tightly.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think they are interconnected. Peace building in many ways is not a simple linear process. Is bespoke to many of the contexts and the environments in that way. Often has to deal with individuals, government, and societies and institutions. Individuals, their relationship with each other.
That's the core.
Absolutely. And this is the horizontal kind of relationship between a citizen and another citizen, and how they see each other. What are their kind of connection relationship? And then there is a vertical connection with the government. How does a citizen view their social contract with the government, and how do they view the government providing that service to them and enabling them in that way?
It goes vertical and horizontal.
Vertical and horizontal, yes, absolutely.
And then when it comes to resources, again, there is a Kurdish saying that says, means no one has died of hunger. I remember I said that years ago to a European friend, and they said, oh, so many people have died of hunger and starvation. But the Kurdish expression means if there is justice in resource distribution, there is enough for everyone. That's literally what it means. No one, if we do a just distribution of resources globally or locally, there is enough for everyone.
Yeah. No, I certainly agree. That's a very good saying, because, and if I understood it correctly, is that injustice is caused by humans.
Yeah,
is not caused in a vacuum.
Exactly.
And it's if you look at water or access to food or services or whatever it is, it's a public good that everyone should access it equitably. And then it's the restrictions that happens from humans that cause the suffering and that cause the inequalities and everything else. So yeah, I would agree.
Some people use more resources than others. It's as simple as that.
Yes.
Yeah, and with we had another guest here. Next week we will post the podcast with her, and she also works in the field of cultural heritage, preservation of a country's identity and all that, and also in peace building. So she was saying, when you say peace, most people think when there is no war, it means there is peace. But peace you should work on before conflict, during the conflict, after a conflict. So what you said is true, that you have to work on peace all the time in all of its aspects, not wait until a conflict or something happens.
Absolutely. And it's like anything you have. And the terminology there is the negative and positive peace. Stopping of hostilities or violence is not, is not peace in that way. There's still the tension. There's still the possibilities of that violence reemerging and resurging. So absolutely, working at it is very critical in that way. An interesting thought that I now remembered from a heritage perspective is, and how communities and societies view peace, is the commonalities of memories, societal memories. How do you view your relationship with your neighbor from the next village, the person who's from a different ethnicity or religion, and that commonality and the identity of a nation is so critical. And those images, symbols, and histories, either they are, common or full of divisions. But in either way, it's to build, sustain it, to continue that peace, you have to work at it for many, many years, before, during, and after the conflict that happened in that way. Because those commonalities and shared identities is what creates the basis or the foundations for a strong community. in that way.
Very good
And if
point.
those are strained in many ways, they create kind of, when something happens, there's a connection in the mind that always goes to, I have an issue with that person, or I have a problem with that individual village or community, and so on and so
Or
forth.
tribe. Yeah.
Or tribe in that way. Yes. Yeah.
But it's also important that a society is active. I don't know what, in your experience, is the Iraqi society an active society in terms of taking the lead on certain things, or do we always wait for the government to come and build a park, protect this tree, do this and that? Do we have, because I've seen it in other countries, other societies, where a community build their own school, do their own green space, and all that. I don't think we have that or very little in Iraq.
It's an issue that I wouldn't have a clear response to, but maybe I can kind of untangle the thought process there. In my view, there are very, very early on in terms of civic engagement in the civil society in that way. There are lots of ideas, initiatives, and efforts, willingness to do something. But also the history of the country is also part of the issue. The role of the government in Iraqi society was always the primary provider.
Yeah,
Of
that's
anything.
true. For anything, yeah.
Employment, services, and there is that expectation in that way. And historically, the economy, because it's an oil economy, the government has that ability to provide. But then that's not true anymore. There are lots of challenges and lots of difficulties that happened in our history over the many, many years. And especially now, it's the economy is, is very strained, the public service in that way. So that's part of kind of understanding the composition and what has happened and the lead up to it. After 2003, I feel some of the ideas or the initiatives for civil society came about artificially. And that the idea of a well-developed civic engagement and civic action came to the country from a developmental side of things. There is a surge in humanitarian support and developmental support and so on. So the space for it to organically grow, solidify, and create a foundation, I don't feel it happened to the best extent possible. And these adjustments are happening. And there are very critical responses that happened from the civil society in Iraq. For example, in response to the humanitarian crisis after the defeat of ISIS, or during the occupation of ISIS, and so on and so forth. Many organizations responded out of a need. They collectively came together, they organized, and they provided that humanitarian response. They provided that developmental response. And that comes maybe culturally, comes from, when you see someone in need, you give to them and you try to alleviate their suffering. But I feel that the progression is happening. It's a very youthful society, the country, and that power exists. The way we consume information and interact with that information exists. So I feel more and more perhaps changes and action is coming in that way. Yeah.
So what's Iraq's main challenge these days? I'm not going to say the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But these days, what's the big problem? Is it
all challenges? Take us hours.
Exactly. Well, the two major problems in Iraq for now, and let's say the next 5 years. I changed my mind. Is it water? Is it
absolutely
desertification?
Yeah. So I would say prime and up there on the list is environmental, climate change. And that runs the gambit. That runs the kind of spectrum of things, from desertifications, from food security, health issues, as a result of climate change, from communal and governance issues and so on and so forth. There is a wide spectrum of challenges that the country is dealing with. And there are responses, and there are positive responses in that way. There's something that is,
Can
being
these
done.
things be solved? Like desertification be stopped, pollution reduced? Are they possible?
I never look at these issues as a linear, if you do A, you get B. If you do A, you can improve and reach a better space. But it's not, in my mind, a useful comparison to say like, okay, we should compare it to go back to 20, 30, 40 years ago. More so of like, what is the reality now and how can we improve it for societies and everybody? That's one. A second one that equally is connecting, this is the global shift in that way, is the over-reliance of fossil fuels and the public sector that exists and the challenges there throughout the country, really. Globally, a lot of countries are shifting to clean energy, diversifying their economies, shifting in a way to lessen the burden and lessen the impact coming up.
Yeah.
And this is a major challenge that Iraq faces.
They have to make that shift or that switch.
Absolutely, and quite rapidly as well. It's not a slow issue or a challenge. The more you go into the future, the more and more it becomes more and more challenging in that way. Yeah.
Do you think like we communicate to the world in a clear way what's happening, our challenges, concerns, and things in terms of people and the government, mainly the government? I mean, when it comes to infrastructure development, climate action, environmental projects, we cannot do it alone. Yes. No country these days does anything alone. Everything is connected to everyone else. But I think it's important for Iraqis and Kurds as well to be able to communicate better to the outside world, whatever it is, whether you have needs for technological assistance or you want advice or anything. Do you see a problem in that area?
I wouldn't term it as a problem, but it's an opportunity, certainly.
An opportunity.
Is that there are a number of global efforts to help countries transition and lessen the burden of loss, environmental loss or climate change loss. And these are two things that we've engaged with on those topics in particular before. And those are the loss and damage and the just transitions.
Yeah, these are two major terms. Yeah,
absolutely. Two major terms and two major articles within the Paris Agreement to help countries and how they transition and how they move forward.
Transition from what to what, if you explain to us?
So a just transition is looking at adjusting economies to be more sustainable, to reduce their carbon footprint and everything else in a just way. And this is the overemphasis. And that when you view economies that largely or highly engage with fossil fuels or non-renewable energy, and their economies rely on them, it's not a switch that can be, flipped to change your economy. There are major challenges. And in Iraq, for example, is not a way of like, okay, can you produce less oil? Can you consume less oil and so on and so forth?
Starting tomorrow.
Yeah. Is the electrical grid, is the transportation, is the public sector. There are millions and millions of employees that rely on the government that largely have their budget from the oil income and proceeds in that way. So keeping that consideration in mind, how do you do the transition in a way that developing countries, underdeveloped countries are not left behind and supported to make that transition? Because, and this is the general consensus, is that climate is not an issue in one country or one region.
Yeah.
It's happening in the United States and Europe what's happening in Africa and the Middle East is all connected.
Yeah. And who sets the goals for a transition? For example, some countries, it's the UN, or countries are free to set their own goals and transition towards.
Sure. So it's a global commitment to reduce global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius that I'm sure you've heard about. And the date is set, I believe, by 2030 in that way. Then the UNFCCC, and it's the UN, I'm forgetting the acronym now, but it's
UNFCCC?
Yeah.
United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
Yes.
It's many C's.
many C's in that way. And it's the UN body that interacts with governments to then establish their adaptation plans. And how do they, adapt throughout their many sectors of the economy so that they are able to transition in a just way, in a fair and equitable way in that way. So it's not a kind of bottom down. It's rather the nation states lead on setting their goals and how to achieve those goals. And then UN agencies and bilateral, multilateral organizations then help support those countries to transition and that way.
And if a country does not transition, doesn't care about these things, the loser at the end of the day will be them.
Again, it's the spirit of connection and collective action. And opinions differ. How you interact, how do you believe in climate change? Do you believe in the impact of climate change? Do you believe in the science? There are always issues that people, countries, nation states have different views and stance and positions on. So it's not a clear-cut kind of collective action or opinion on it. There have been the Paris Agreement that brought majority of the countries as signatories as a collective agreement on the first kind of obligatory agreement to move forward in one direction and that way. But then, politics change, leaders change, government change, and so on and so forth. And that is always a challenge internationally in that way. So these are the structures that exist. Then it's on the countries to, again, communicate their needs and engage with the pockets of funding. For example, the loss and damage fund that is pledged from countries as a way to work with countries to lessen the damage and the losses that they've suffered.
So if a country puts its act together, works well, is on the right track, there is funding to get.
Absolutely.
Internationally.
There's funding to get internationally. There's support internationally that is being done. For instance, the Green Climate Fund. It's funding that's, you can think of it as a funding pocket that is given to countries to be able to respond to those realities, to those issues that are existing within within their countries and that way. But there are issues, and when you say about communications, communicating facts and figures has to be done to a standard. It's not always illustrative, colloquial, of like, I've lost this land, I'm facing... Poetic, rhetorical, and emotional in that way. It's a fact representation of how and what was the loss in that way, and how you communicate it in a way that is scientifically backed by figures, data, measurements over the years of what's happening. And
so numbers and figures, statistics, facts, these things matter. Absolutely. You cannot write a 20-page report explaining in a lyrical way what your climate problems are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's both. There is a space for creative communications and storytelling, because you're calling people for action. Communities, governments, and everybody. And it's a very crowded space. It's a crowded space where many countries are dealing with a lot of issues and challenges, and there are many actions that are being taken. So you have to communicate it, the storytelling and the creative side of things. But then you have to back it up by facts and figures that are not from 1 year or 2 years. It goes back, decades, and trying to establish the losses in that way. And you asked me about the opportunity here for Iraq and the Kurdistan region. And it's really this communication space where you're engaging, or the governments are engaging, interacting more, and they are doing excellent work now in their engagements within the Prime Minister's office and the government in Baghdad, but equally aligning the pieces of the story within the different parts of the government. Data governance is a big one. You're looking at weather measurements and weather events and that way, and how to communicate it. It's a very challenging one. And that's the challenge that exists within the government, is that many entities collect data for a specific objective and purpose, and there isn't an overarching framework that interprets and uses.
Silos, basically, within the government, where that's so true. I mean, not only communication between the Kurdish and Iraqi government with the international partners is important, it's also crucial that different government agencies and ministries and research institutes communicate with each other on every issue, not just climate change.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, a big role is the role of academia.
What role can they play, academia?
Absolutely. This is often what people tell you, is that academics use a certain language, politicians or policymakers use a certain language, and they don't speak to each other very easily.
Yeah, they can't understand each other.
They can't understand each other. My father was a doctor. He passed, Allah yarhamah. But when he used to write his prescriptions, he wrote it in a way that you can never understand it. It was in English, but scribbles. And if you try to understand it, read it, you would never. You go to the pharmacist and he's able to tell you exactly what, what he wrote. So I feel there is, in a sense, somewhat of a different kind of language, objectives, and priorities that are being set in the academic space and in the policy space. And it's on both. So on the government to interact with academia, align the research agenda, align the funding for the research so that it supports the priorities of the government. And likewise, the academic institutions to have that clear and critical functionality. Because it's such an influential role for academia to be the arm of policymakers.
They can provide all the insight, research, science. The academia could do that. Absolutely.
And when policy is based in scientific findings, scientific rigor, and data, and so on and so forth, it's a better policy all around. You're taking into account the social, the governance aspect, but also the scientific. And when it comes to dwindling resources, food security, and working with the environment or with nature, this is a space where engineers and physicists and professors and academics can come in to support in many ways.
That's true. There was another thing we said. There are two major parts of the Paris Agreement, was just transition, and there was another thing we were going to...
Loss and damage.
Loss and damage,
yes,
So that is also new. I think it came about at COP27, Sharm el-Sheikh.
Sharm el-Sheikh or the Glasgow...
one of them,
it's one of them.
Every country, certainly Iraq and Kurdistan, qualify for loss and damage, because all we have seen in the last 4 decades is loss and damage.
No, absolutely. And it's again, the opportunity exists there to provide a clear case for that. And there are criteria, metrics, and standards for the application for it. And UN agencies stand ready in supporting the government. I believe the Iraqi government and Baghdad have applied for the Green Climate Fund grant in connection or in support of another UN agency. I'm forgetting my acronyms. But the opportunity exists. But that goes back to my earlier point, is that the case has to be provided in a clear and a concise and a defensible way. There is room, I believe, for further engagements, further supports from developing countries, or developed countries rather, and funding
And
the loss and damage.
It's good that there's the UN as a go-between to go to help you write a proposal, like the government, right?
Yes.
Proposal, put your case together and all that.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
case a government says we don't have the know-how or expertise, the UN agencies can help.
Absolutely. And it's really the commitment to that fund, the loss and damage fund, and how it's being operationalized, because the losses from natural disasters are really underfunded in that way. You know, how you quantify them, it's another question that we talked about. But then how do you provide your case, and then for the funding that exists to support countries in that way?
Yeah.
There is a gap, I believe, in my view. Yeah.
Do you work in Erbil these days in Kurdistan, if I may ask, or you go to travel across the country?
So I spend my time between the United States and Erbil. I've had really the privilege in living here for the last 7 years.
7?
Yeah. 7 years.
Wow. So this was your base and your workplace, basically.
My base and workplace, and I am blessed to have a family here. So my wife lives here, and my son, and our dog.
You said,
I showed you the picture.
I saw the picture, and you adopted her, but just by chance on Corrick Mountain, you said.
I adopted her through an NGO. I believe their name was Paws of Kurdistan. So they rescue animals, and then they look for families to take them.
Wow.
So in 2000, now I'm drawing blank, 2019, 2020, right before COVID.
I also got my dog through them in 2020.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Such a
also,
small
they brought him
lovely,
to me from
lovely
Soran
organization.
area. Yeah.
Okay.
From that area.
Yeah, they're a wonderful organization. I forgot the lady that I interacted with, but they do excellent and really admirable job. And our dog, her name is Nazlı. It's Turkish, and I think Kurdish as well.
Nazlı, yeah.
So she's spoiled.
Spoiled, yeah.
She's very much spoiled.
Mudallat.
Mudallat.
Wow. So has she been to the US?
She has not. No. But eventually, when we move to the US, we will take her with us.
Wow.
Which is a difficult thing because the flight is very long.
Yeah.
But yeah. So in terms of my work, so I spend my time here and then I spend my time in the US. I'm doing consultancies, so independent consultancies.
In these fields that we
In those fields, absolutely, yeah. So my brother and I are collaborating. He owns a firm, communication firms in the United States, and we're exploring opportunities really in international development and in supporting businesses in the United States. So small businesses and the US.
And here as well, like, do you look to do projects or a consultancy expansion here in Iraq?
In two parts. So one, the US side of things is really supporting and working with small businesses across the journey that they have, from the ideation, registration to the operationalization, access to finance, and so on and so forth, and engaging with them in that journey. And then within the context in Iraq and in the region is really working equally on the operational functionalities of NGOs and CSOs and so on, supporting them from a management perspective, a strategy perspective in that way, and then equally delivering programming to donors and funders and that way. So we're just exploring the space, but part of our exploration is, which is an exciting one, I think, somewhat in climate change. and climate resiliency and adaptation, by utilizing AI and technical solutions and trying to find efficiencies and enabling actors, institutions, and responses.
Efficiency is the key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's the practicality of it. How do you enable solutions in that way to reach practical solutions
Yeah.
to the people in need? And then the efficiency of it is in the context now of really dwindling resources, funding. There are many actors that relied heavily on those resources that are dwindling, moving away, that are not there anymore. So then is the key efficiency.
Efficiency is, important.
How do you use generative AI and LLMs to be able to do the job and to reach the goal in an efficient manner with the reduced resources in the background in that way.
Yeah, and that also takes us back to the idea of data. You spoke earlier about data governance and all that. I always think about this, that AI that people say can do everything, can do magic, it fails when it comes to Iraq and the Kurdistan region, because AI needs data to grab constantly from a history, a wealth of literature and material that's online on any aspect.
Yeah.
So I think as we go along in Kurdistan and Iraq, we must help AI. AI now needs our help when it comes to this country. For example, if you want AI to bring you something about the last 50 years of resources in Iraq, oil or forests or economy, there's not much existing. It's just one research in Arabic, one in Kurdish, one in PDF, one in a library. All of these things should end up online, I think, in order for AI to be able to help us.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is certainly a gap in data information and how the model is being built and fed, because it interacts with the information, as you put it, and the data that comes into the model itself.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely a gap there. A useful way for me to think about it is always from a problem perspective, because if you're going at it to try to resolve a host of issues and to solve all your problems, you will fail.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Because that's where it is, the model is impossible. It's the model to be structured in a way to resolve a specific issue for you, interacting with structured and very good data sets in that way. So this is absolutely a gap and an opportunity in that, is looking how you can interact with it, parcel it out in a specific functionalities in government and private sector and in international development, so that it's able to create efficiencies, expand reach and work and so on. And it's a model that improves, interacts, changes over time. It's not a static
That's true.
entity in that way. But what's critical for me in our context is that the global south is not left behind, because there's a technological leap in many ways, and in a way advances toward the future.
Yeah.
How the private sector uses it, how government uses it, how in many applications. Really, the spectrum is very wide. So that, our countries are not left behind in that way. Are not left behind and catching up to it, utilizing it, because in few years that will be the difference.
Exactly. Like many other things that some countries were left behind in the last 200 years.
Absolutely.
This time, some countries will certainly be left behind.
And it will take more resources, more efforts to catch up and to catch on.
I mean, the AI itself needs a lot of energy. Power
and data centers
and data center and all that. But Iraq, thank God, has all the energy to run data centers. But the infrastructure is, of course, lacking at this stage, I think.
And it's a strategic investment of sorts. I mean, lots of the data centers that are coming online in the US are being built purposefully to use renewable energies. So solar, hydraulic energy and other wind energy and so
Yeah.
on and so forth, as a way of when you're coming onto the grid, essentially you're bringing that power capacity in that way. And what do we have in abundance as the summer sun?
Yeah, exactly. We have all the sun we need.
Absolutely. So it's really connected in that way. There are ways that investments can be made to push or propel the country forward.
And do you like Erbil is now a good place to start a consultancy business, AI company? Is it in the right place?
I believe so. Erbil is a very interesting space in terms of the functionalities needed, the environment, the ecosystem, in that way. Personally, we're planning to move back to the US because we've been abroad for so many years. But I have
Abroad
family
meaning
members
outside the US or in the US.
No, going back to the US. And because I've been abroad for 7 years, and my family is there, so it's time to go back.
Where were you before moving here?
So I was in DC, Washington.
DC,
I was working in Washington, also a part of a consulting firm in Washington. And then I spent many years in North Africa and Nepal and Africa, and then eventually to Iraq.
Wow. Where were you? Who were you with the UN?
No. Before the United Nations, I was with a consulting firm called Chemonics International, and they do U.S. government implementation, essentially consultations and development.
And now you've picked Erbil as your hub.
Yeah, and now Erbil as my hub has been for the last 7 years. I am unfortunately moving, but I have family members that are returning to Iraq, and they picked Kurdistan as their future hub in that way.
Wow. Yeah, I thought you had... so you are here temporarily these days.
Yeah, but my ties and connections are very, very deep to Iraq and to the Kurdistan region. So I'm sure I will be back one day.
How about Iraq? Do you go to the rest of the other provinces, like for work or for just vacation?
Yeah. For work, I have been quite a bit to the south in Baghdad. I've recently been to Baghdad through personal travels to visit family there.
Did you live in Baghdad ever in your life?
When I was a child. So when I grew up in Baghdad until 2006, 2005, 2006. And then I moved to the United States.
Which area of Baghdad you like or you lived in?
So I lived in the Rasafa side. I like all of Baghdad.
Yeah.
There's a sentimentality and emotional connection.
That's true. Yeah. I lived there for almost 3 years, 2003 to late 2005.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I liked it all. I mean, sometimes I had a couple weeks off from work or a month off. I wouldn't even come back to Kurdistan.
Okay.
I would rather spend it exploring Baghdad.
It's a really fun city.
Yeah, I loved it. I don't know how it has changed now. I haven't been back in a long time. But exactly, the history, those alleys, those houses...
It's a wealth of history, and it changed a lot. If last time you were there in 2006,
2009.
2009.
I was there in 2006 as well, but the last time I was there was 2009.
So it changed drastically. Has expanded, lots of developments, but then there's the history, the beautiful history of Baghdad.
Yeah.
The old city, the alleyways, the buildings. Really, there's not a dream of mine, but more so of a wish that there's a revitalization of sorts. And now it's happening in the center of the city, where they're reconstructed some of the roads and the buildings.
Yeah, they did that with Al-Mutanabbi, the book street.
Yes,
yeah,
Al-Mutanabbi, and then Zuqaq Sarai is like the parallel one to it. But then there are so much. There's, for example, the Agatha Christie house on the river.
I have such a story with Agatha Christie in that street, yeah.
Okay.
In 2000 and like many in my younger years, I was in love with her crime novels. So I would read whatever book of Agatha Christie I could find. I found some in Iran, some in Turkey. A few of her books were sent to me by a woman from Australia. We met online on a fan page of Agatha Christie fan page. So she sent me the books, and then whatever that I did not have, I found them all in one shop on Mutanabbi Street.
Really?
In 2003,
Okay. Yeah.
about 17 to 20 books of Agatha Christie.
Wow.
And I read them all, of course, in Baghdad. But I did not.
You found the treasure then?
Yeah, so I completed the collection.
Okay. Wow.
So, and you spoke of Agatha Christie House in Baghdad?
Yeah, it's the historical landmarks that exist in Baghdad. There's such a obviously deep and rich history throughout the years, but there are areas that are hidden or not very well taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's and those gems really my dream and my wish is that those gems are uncovered for the world to see. And it's such a place where all of those and you see that from anyone going to Baghdad. There is a look at their face when they go to Mutanabbi Street.
Yeah.
And see all the books and everything, and
it's a happy place. Mutanabbi is a happy place, And one of her books actually is titled "They Came to Baghdad," an Agatha Christie book, and then "Murder in Mesopotamia." That's another one about Mosul, and so I have that memory with Mutanabbi and Agatha Christie.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
I'll have to borrow some of your books with your recommendations. I'm a huge fan of reading, and I have a very small collection.
So any book you mean, or Agatha Christie books?
A recommendation that you would give me. I leave it very open-ended.
Yeah, there is a book that I want to read. There are 4 books actually. But one is promised to me by a friend, and the book is called A Gentleman in Moscow, written after talks about right after the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. I'm waiting for that book. Okay. But another one I must order online is Sailing by Starlight. And it's about a man who retires from his job in the US, I think in the 60s. Yeah, or 80s. Anyway, and he wants to prove that people sailed the seas by reading the stars in the past. Thousands of years ago, they did not have GPS and maps. Right. So they would look at, and he does that. He sails from California, I think, to Australia, all on his own without any technology or equipment. Oh, wow. And by just reading the sky, he finds his way.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's another book I want to read. When I get them, I will. There's one you could read called Road Through Kurdistan. I don't know if you
Road Through Kurdistan.
Yeah.
I have not read it, no.
This was written by an engineer from New Zealand who came in 1928.
I saw one of your videos.
Yeah, I've done a short video introducing the book, and it starts from Khanzad, right, in the outskirts of Erbil. He supervises the building of the Hamilton Road to Hajj Omran to the border in 1928. Wow. So the book is less about the road, more about how people lived 100 years ago, farmers, the connection between him and the workers, and the nature of that area. Okay. That book is available here. I will get you a copy.
Absolutely. I'd love it. No, that sounds like a lovely book. I love kind of a combination of history and how, because it really is a snapshot of time.
Exactly.
And this is why I love reading the classics in many ways, because you get a snapshot of the thinking, the psyche, the way people were, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and whenever the book was written. Yeah.
And do you, is it easy to, there are certain jobs that you have to be out in the field all the time. For example, that was true to me when I was a journalist. I had to go to the front lines and do stories, and when it was dangerous or impossible, I couldn't do it. It was that simple. So with consultancy, I think in the age of AI and lots of other things, you could be anywhere. You could be in DC.
Yeah.
We want you to be in Erbil, but if you had to go back
Inshallah,
to DC,
inshallah.
you could still work with the governorate of
Yes.
Najaf, for example, or the Iraqi government.
Absolutely.
No
And-
borders.
No, absolutely. And that's, you were talking about labels and terms earlier, and that's what they call the digital migration. Is that more and more people are based remotely supporting entities in whatever country, in Europe, in the US, in Iraq, and so on and so forth. And that's because of the advent of technology, because of the advent of AI in many ways, and that way. But for me, hopefully, like I said, my ties to Kurdistan and Erbil are very deep. So I'm sure we will have many returning trips back here as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much, Abdullah, for joining us today. And I could talk to you for a long time on all of these issues because you are an expert.
Thank you very much.
And anything else you want to say to us? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. No, thank you very much. This is really lovely. I told you this in a private message, but a lovely idea, and really brings me happiness when I see such programs and initiatives that are done, highlighting the people that pass through Erbil, the people of Kurdistan and Iraq, but equally done from someone from the area to communicate, tell the story.
Going back to communication.
Yeah. Telling the story of all the wonders and the interesting people, the interesting entities and businesses and government initiatives and everything that is happening in Iraq. It really is lovely, and I would say it's been a pleasure.
Thank
you for inviting me so much.
Thank you. No, my idea of behind this podcast is to give everyone a chance. With TVs, you're so restricted. They have news coming up, this and that. Whereas in a place like this, anyone really can share their stories with no restrictions and freely, basically.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for creating that space for people.
You are welcome, and thank you for coming today to tell us these amazing stories.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.